Barry Silbert is another one of those crypto villains that has dug a huge hole and is leaving the rest of the earned customers to pay for his mistakes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of WagMe TV. We have a great one for you today. We're diving into the DCG Gemini lawsuit and covering some of the implications of that and some of the details and overview around what's actually going on to keep you guys informed on that. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. I think, Mata, it's going over to you first.
Yeah, so super quickly. So Gemini Trust Company, they filed a lawsuit against digital currency group DCG and Barry Silbert. We've done a video on this in the past, which we can definitely tag here below if you want a little bit more info into kind of what happened with them. But essentially, right, that series of events is just way beyond what we're going to chat about today. But long story short, a DCG or digital currency group subsidiary named Genesis, they went under after FTX collapsed, which ultimately took Gemini Earn down with it. Initially, they were committed to working things out, but as time went on, it was pretty clear Genesis wouldn't be able to pay, even with the help of the parent company, DCG. So the Gemini co-founder, we all know him as Cameron Winklevoss, one of the Winklevoss twins, has been calling out DCG, calling out Barry Silbert on Twitter, basically saying, look, pay up or we're going to sue you. So essentially that lawsuit finally came through. They're alleging that they defrauded Gemini by failing to disclose that Genesis was insolvent when it continued the Earn program. So I know that Cameron Winklevoss has a huge Twitter thread around kind of some of the key allegations that we can tag below if you want to check some of those out. But the big one, of course, is just Barry allegedly convincing Gemini Earn to continue operating despite him knowing Genesis was insolvent. So, yeah, any thoughts on that after kind of some of that news came out and some of the details that we've covered on some of the earlier episodes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, I think they've got a $900 million hole in their balance sheet, which is just absolutely huge for Gemini. I think it warrants, maybe a social network number 2, like a sequel for the Cameron Winklevoss or the Winklevoss twins. But yeah, I mean, this just seems like Barry Silbert is another one of those crypto villains that, has dug a huge hole and is leaving the rest of the token holders or earn customers to pay for his mistakes. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously on the side of Gemini here. I'm hoping that they pull through here because yeah, it just seems like there's been some gross negligence on the Genesis side.
Yeah, some really good points from both of you. I think like the really interesting part to me is going to be as we actually get into the weeds of this, how Gemini is going to kind of prove out each allegation, right? Because they're basically claiming that they wouldn't have even entered the partnership with Genesis if they had known the extent of Genesis's and DCG's exposure to Three Arrows Capital, which collapsed, back in, I think, last year in June of 2022. And so they're claiming that we wouldn't even have gone through with this if we had known this, and it's DCG's responsibility to have disclosed this to us. So it's going to be interesting to see how they try to prove that out, but I'm kind of curious to see how that actually goes about happening.
Yeah, I think a ton of details to still come out from this, right? And seeing how it actually unfolds will be very interesting. I think it's definitely a little bit of a gray area. So I think we'll all get to know a little bit more about the situation as well, and probably uncover some things maybe about, Gemini and the Winklevosses, right? That we didn't know before. So you never know who's actually going to end up being correct, who's actually going to end up being the villain in the end. But I think from the takeaways from the crypto community, I would say, is just be careful, right? DCG, they hold stake in some of the largest crypto companies, some of the largest projects. If they're forced to sell a stake in some, or maybe even all of these, that could hurt the entire industry. You also have kind of this coinciding between Grayscale and DCG as well. So Grayscale issues GBTC, which we've talked about a lot on this channel. And that holds, I believe it's about $20 billion of Bitcoin. So if Grayscale or GBTC gets caught in some of this crossfire, that could do some damage to Bitcoin specifically, which then, of course, as we know, bleeds into some of the rest of the crypto market as well. So kind of just a reminder that the crypto space is still the Wild West. Investors still need to be careful about where they put their money. And I think it also raises some questions about the transparency and accountability of some of the biggest players in this industry, which we've started to uncover a lot over the last 2 years.
Great points. Great points. Yeah, I think it's always important to remember how interconnected, with crypto being this early on, a lot of these players are interconnected. It's not just Gemini or DCG going down, right? A lot of these folks, like you said, Mata, have investments in other places. So definitely keep an eye on this. And WAGMI TV is a great location, great source for you guys to keep an eye on this as we move forward. So we'll definitely be keeping tabs and posting updates on it. But as always, if you found this helpful or interesting, like, comment, subscribe. We always love hearing from you guys. Would love to hear your takes on Gemini and what's going on as this kind of evolves over time. But really appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time on WAGMI TV.